2024 is shaping up to be one of the craziest years in the music industry, probably in the last 2 decades even, and it's only been 9 months. We've got Taylor Swift dropping a double album that has been gatekeeping any other artist of reaching that #1 spot, and arguably the most iconic rap beef of Kendrick Lamar versus Anita McSween. Which I could have made a video on it if I wanted buku views, but I think everyone and their FBI agent at this point are connoisseurs towards this beef. Oh, and the boogeyman who escaped from my closet, Jojo Siwa. Putting the gossip aside though, there has been an influx of decent albums dropping this year. Albums that have been making a lot of noise in their respective communities for a lot of casual music listeners. If you're an artist like Taylor Swift, she can release an album the same way someone would cover their fart with a cough, and she would still sell 1 million of copies. But others need to get a bit more creative and think outside the box to develop a successful marketing plan to expand its reach to the greatest number of people possible. It may take more than press runs and interviews. Posting on social media only does so much when your main point of contact is with your core fan base, unless you're posting content that is designed to reach a new audience. Keeping the marketing campaign in mind, artists need to ensure that they are creating an identity for the album before it drops. A memorable experience is essential to an album rollout. You hope it will be nostalgic for people looking back on what made this album special to them and how they felt at the time of first listening to it. Nostalgia aside, in the moment it needs to be captivating to hold your interest for several months of promo before it drops. Typically this comes in the form of singles, visuals, ad campaigns, interviews, and some very out-of-the-box tactics that try to make the most noise before you've heard the full project. In this video, I'm going to cover some marketing campaigns for some of the most highly anticipated albums that have come out this year so far. I will be judging them by their marketing tactics, their press runs, their release cycle, and anything that the artist or label did that shaped the reception of the album for the listeners. I will be ranking the album rollouts by breaking them down into specific topics. Was the campaign creative and unique? Did it build hype within their community? Was this done in a way that only this artist could pull off? And how well did the album perform as a result of this album rollout? And there's plenty more to cover, but these are the main points I will be looking over. After covering the major points of each rollout, the council will assign a totally unbiased score out of 10. With that being said, I want to also preface this video by quickly saying that I am trying to be as fair as possible, but it will mostly come down to my own silly, goofy opinion, so don't hate me too much. I will also be using the current album sales and chart placements with a bit of hesitation. I'm basing the performance where they left off in their careers individually, from their last project to now. So that could mean a Charli XCX album may creep over a Taylor Swift album. I don't know, leave me alone. Anyways, let's get started. Now, when I first heard Kanye was planning on coming out with a collab project with Ty Dolla $ign, I couldn't care less. Then I heard the first single. Then I managed to care less. But all in all, I was willing to give the album a shot because as much as I didn't think they would have a chance of making an album that worked between their two different styles, I figured they had the talent to make it work. The process of releasing an album isn't the simplest thing for Kanye to do. The album underwent multiple delays and had only been in the works for a little over 6 months. Kanye struggled to find any label willing to handle distribution for Vultures due to his anti-Semitic comments that he made back in 2022. Rightfully so. He would approach several labels for help, only to get turned down by each and every one of them, including Def Jam, the label that worked with him for over 10 years to release his most iconic work. Kanye originally planned to release Vultures on October 13th, 2023, but in typical Kanye fashion, he ended up delaying the album several times before finally landing on February 10th. And the only way this was made possible was for Kanye to use his independent music label Yeezy to distribute the album to streaming services. Although he may have built quite the name for himself in the past few decades, for better or for worse, he still had all the ears eager to hear this new project after the disappointment of Donda 2 that came out 2 years prior. And the initial release of Vultures was met with pretty rough reviews right out the gate. And can you blame them? Hardly any of the songs sounded finished, and any song that Ty Dolla $ign introed typically just got met with an ugly verse from Kanye. Also, Vultures 2 came out, and it's pretty much Vultures 1 looking in the mirror from the rollout to reception. So the overall score for this album's rollout, I'm thinking 2 out of 10. Pros of the album, Burn, and the cons is the fact that it exists, honestly. It's quite a lazy attempt at starting a trilogy of albums. There was just a clear lack of passion and care with this one, and I don't even know why it ever got released. Billie Eilish took a very different approach to her album rollout, and I think it's both respectable and inspiring. She refused to release any singles for this album, and had a valid reason for it. She believes that releasing songs as singles takes them out of context of how they're meant to be heard, alongside the rest of the album. I can see where she's coming from. So many times nowadays, artists give most of their attention to having a hit single that can earn a placement on every mood playlist, be a viral song on social media, or have a highly anticipated music video. But this can lead to the rest of the album not receiving the love and care it needs to help it flourish. She was very indistinct with her marketing as well, but fans are able to catch on very quickly. She posted lyrics from her album on billboards across the world in a similar color palette to that of the album cover. This sparked plenty of discussion on forums and Twitter from fans who were quick to identify the billboard's origin. Billie had an interest in being a productive member of society as well, and by using her album release as a way to do something positive for the environment. So for her physical releases, she had an eco-friendly vinyl made from recycled vinyl scraps. The packaging and shipping materials were all made using recyclable materials. You have to respect someone trying to make a difference in the world, no matter the scale. Then once the album was released on May 17th, it was honestly all eyes on Billie. The album had peaked at number 2 on Billboard and is still sitting in the top 10 as we speak. Each song has already amassed over 100 million streams. And a couple of music videos directed by Billie herself have made impressive numbers on YouTube, and they're great watches. On my first listen, I thought the album was what you would typically come to expect from a Billie Eilish album, but stripped back instrumentally. After a few more listens though, you can hear the maturity in the writing, the production, and the sound selection. And these two siblings are still in their 20s. It's crazy. The fact that they do this all on their own without several writers and producers in the room is incredible. I wish this was how all music was made. Just you, your creativity, and your personal experiences to guide your work. For the simplicity and focus on the music itself, I gotta go with a 7.5 out of 10. The only reason it wasn't higher was because there wasn't necessarily a call to action for this project. I think Billie is just at a stage in her career where everyone respects her and her work, that they're on the edge of their seat when new music is around the corner. She proves she doesn't have to pull any strings to get herself in front of everyone's face, and that's fine. Alright, let's tread this album with caution. Again, it's not necessarily about the music, but how it successfully captivated fans. So let's please keep all limbs attached to my body, please. The Tortured Poets Society by The Tortured Poets Department, The Anthology by Taylor Swift. Her 11th studio album in her discography has been released alongside multiple albums and re-recordings of past Taylor projects coming out in just the last 4 years or so. The album was revealed to the public after she was awarded Album of the Year at the 2024 Grammy Awards, which was already the perfect setup to announce new music. While you're the center of attention, you decide to announce to the world that you have new music around the corner. The timing is just a little too good. Once the album was released on April 19th, it took only 2 hours for Taylor to drop the digital extension of the Tortured Poets Department with 15 additional songs, making it a 31-track record, just crossing the 2-hour mark. On the day of its release, Taylor dropped a music video for her song Fortnite with Post Malone. And although I'm not crazy about the song itself, I thought the music video was pretty great and cinematically captivating. When we covered Billie's decision to use recycled vinyl to print her new record, she also made a strong claim about artists who waste precious materials on making multiple physical versions of their albums, just to get a listener to buy more than one for it to count as an additional sale. Well, Taylor is most definitely one of those artists that fit into that category. She released over 20 versions of this album, different vinyl presses, CDs, audio downloads, cassettes, and so much more. She has evolved her Eras tour to include tracks from the new project and has continued to completely crush records by generating over $1 billion in revenue, which makes it the first ever tour to do so. Ever. For those numbers, you have to give Taylor credit for the massive cult following she's formed in recent years, but I believe she is at a point where her name carries most of the weight these days. As long as Taylor stays true to what Taylor does, there isn't much risk involved with new music at the moment. For that, I will give her a 5 out of 10. This album has solidified itself as a masterful blueprint for music marketing in the digital age. Charli XCX leveraged nearly every neurotransmitter she could grab the attention of Gen Z and millennials' favorite mediums of entertainment. First, I want to discuss the cover art. It looks like booty. It goes against all principles of modern branding. A color that is so unappealing to the eyes that it can be associated with vomit or Nickelodeon slime. The font is lowercase, it's low resolution, it's an uninspired font. The album cover doesn't really tell a story or give you any insight into Charli as an artist or personality or what the music is going to sound like. Or does it actually do all those things and do it extremely well?
It is a mess and runs from all of Charli's previous album covers, making it unrecognizable in her discography.
Or does it actually separate itself from her previous work and expose itself as having something more than meets the eye? In my experience, when I initially saw the album cover, I was intrigued, but didn't see anything more than just an easily recognizable cover, thanks to the color choice and obscure design decision to go with a blurry font. But as time passed by, I started to see the movement Charli managed to build in the blink of an eye. Charli mentioned herself that the color and design of the album cover was intentional to trigger the idea of something being wrong. She said she had gone through numerous iterations of different color pairings until deciding on one that felt very off-trend until it became the trend. It basically hits every nail on the head for a successful marketing campaign in almost any industry these days. Something that motivates the general public to make user-generated content to basically create free promotion for your project. This design is so applicable to almost anything, especially in the state of brain rot consumption we are in. This is funny. I don't care what you have to say at all. The anti-marketing is strong with this one, and I think it really resonates with this generation's need for authenticity and genuine storytelling. The songs are very in-depth, personal dives into Charli's mind and experiences she clearly has a lot to talk about. I think the rollout has been very refreshing considering this was mostly all her doing rather than her label, which had some questionable suggestions, to say the least. Another highlight was her making a Brat website so anyone can add their own spice to the trend. I've seen hundreds of profiles with their own profile pictures using the Brat font or memes from companies trying to capitalize on the Brat summer takeover. Overall, this album rollout has so much to offer, and many other channels have done very well in covering it in depth. So for the sake of pacing, I'm going to move on. This rollout has been great, a great learning experience for me and anti-marketing, and I think it was very successful at accomplishing what it set out to do. I think it would be very hard to replicate this in the future, but maybe it's meant to be a once in a blue moon outcome. So I would give this rollout a 9 out of 10. And some extra highlights of Brat's rollout were her Boiler Room performance, the brand's inclusion in presidential candidate Kamala Harris's Twitter page, and the London Eye even lit up lime green on the release of Brat, which is really cool to me. How convenient. 21 Pilots are at the end of the video. I promise I am not a 21 Pilots channel. Just let me play the game, folks. The rollout of Clancy can be seen as a rollout that has been nearly 10 years in the making since the release of Blurry Face in 2015. It would be a bit unfair if we rated it that way, so I'm going to stick with the material that we've been given since the release date was hinted back in November of 2023. 21 Pilots would release a 10-hour video on their YouTube channel titled Ned's Cozy Fireplace that had a mix of lo-fi versions of their songs. The livestream contains several Easter eggs that hinted towards developments in the Dima storyline. If this is something you're unfamiliar with and interested to hear more about, I cover quite a bit of it in my channel's first video. This band built the most dedicated fanbase ever. Check it out after watching this one. Love you, bye. But anyway, when this dropped, the Click's detectives immediately jumped to figure out the hidden messages dispersed throughout the entire stream. Fans started to string together rumors that the album's release date would be May 17th, which at the time made perfect sense. Because since Blurry Face, that album started the lore, and it was released on May 17th 9 years ago. It was also a Friday, which is an industry standard for releasing new music, and This ended up not being the case, but more on that later. They started promoting brand materials with these fiery billboards in countries across the world with the band's new logo, with the name Clancy bordering the entire billboard. Later on, fans would start receiving cryptic letters in the mail that were shown to be sent from Dima, the dystopian society that takes place in the 21 Pilots storyline. Fans noticed that every line had a duplicate of a letter under it. If we count how many letters it takes to reach each duplicate, it goes as follows: 229, 229, 229. It was predicted that this stood for February 29th, which would be the day for something new to follow for the band's discography. And then it happened. On February 29th, the new single for Clancy, Overcompensate, would be released alongside a music video continuing the storyline after the Outside music video from Scale to Nicey. A week before that, they released a short album teaser that pretty much confirmed a lot of speculations and was likely made to help those who are unfamiliar or not caught up with the lore to be able to jump on board for the rest of the album cycle. The album covers were also updated on all streaming platforms, displaying red tape over the eyes of all the covers, besides their self-title for obvious reasons. But Blurryface had tape over the circle that represented the Bishop Keons, who was killed by the other bishops in the Outside music video. The tape over the eyes represented death on all the covers, it seemed, because Trash the Dragon on Psy was killed in the Saturday music video, the Vulture was dead in the My Blood music video, and sadly, both Tyler and Joseph's grandparents, who are visually represented on the cover Vessel, have recently passed away. But after this, 3 more singles and music videos would be released following the release of Overcompensate, which included Next Semester, Backslide, and the Craving single version. And then the band's lead singer, Tyler Joseph, would reveal to fans that they were working on music videos for every song off of Clancy. This tall order would be the reason the album ended up not releasing on May 17th and would later be pushed to May 24th because they were still in the process of polishing the visuals for the record.
We need a little bit more time, and that's why I'm making this video. We're going to push the album back by 1 week.
Once a week past the initial release date, the music videos would all be premiered on a live stream upon the release of the album. All but Paladin Straight, the outro track to the album that would be released nearly a month later as the closer to the Dima storyline. But it ended on a cliffhanger, so I don't know whether it's safe to say there's still more to come or if they're moving on from the story to something new. Whether it's over or not, I have to say 21 Pilots have continued to impress me with their album rollouts. Since 2018's Trench set the band off to show that they had more to offer than just their music. They provided a whole cinematic universe for us. They also managed to sell 143,000 records, in Clancy's first week debuting at number 3 on Billboard's 200. So they have managed to stay at the top of the leaderboards, which isn't as common these days for bands. So I'm happy for the guys. I'm going to give the guys a 9 out of 10 for continuing to try and up the levels this deep into their careers as mainstream musicians with how successful they've been. That's not very easy to do. Now that I've commented on everyone I intended to cover in this video, here's the final ranking. I found it way too difficult to choose between Charli and 21 Pilots. I feel as though they served 2 very different goals. Charli cemented a new movement in modern pop culture that attracted millions of new fans who might not have been on the Charli train in the past. And 21 Pilots have been on the top of their game for nearly 10 years now, and have still managed to keep their cult fanbase hooked and eager for new music, although they are pretty silent between album cycles. So I think it's fair to say I want to give them both credit for what they've managed to pull off this year. Now that we're at the end, let me know. Did you agree with my list? Probably not. I'd really appreciate if you guys commented down below your thoughts and if you would like me to make this a series. Have a good night, and thank you for your patience as always. Don't forget to subscribe and all that good stuff. And alright, yeah, that's enough for now, and I'll see you next time.